There is a conversation that happens in almost every family at some point. You are at a gathering, and an older relative, well-meaning, financially experienced in their own time, looks at you and says some version of the same thing. Renting is throwing money away. You are paying someone else's mortgage. You need to get on the property ladder. Buy something. Anything. Just stop renting. And for most of the 20th century, that advice was broadly correct. Property appreciated and mortgages were manageable relative to incomes. Owning a home was a reliable path to building wealth over time. But the world has changed in ways that most of that advice has not caught up with. And in 2026, the question of whether buying a home is the right financial decision is significantly more complicated than the conventional wisdom suggests. Today, we are going to make the case that renting is not throwing money away, that in a specific set of current conditions, renting is not just acceptable, but genuinely the smarter financial choice for a very large number of people. To really understand this, we have to look at the whole picture, not just the highlights. We're going to dive into the numbers and look at the actual evidence, but we're also going to pause and point out where the critics are right. Let us start with the most common objection, the idea that rent money is wasted money. The argument goes like this. Every month you pay rent. You have nothing to show for it. You are enriching a landlord. You are building no equity. You are simply paying for the right to live somewhere temporarily, and at the end of 10 or 20 years of renting, you own nothing. This argument has emotional resonance because it contains a grain of truth. Rent payments do not build equity in the way that mortgage payments do. But this argument makes a critical error. It compares what a renter spends to what a mortgage payment costs, while ignoring everything else that home ownership costs. And when you account for everything that home ownership actually costs, the picture looks very different. Consider the true cost of buying a home, because the purchase price is only the beginning. In most countries, purchasing a home requires a deposit of between 10 and 20% of the purchase price. Capital that leaves your investment portfolio the moment you commit it to a property. On a $500,000 home, that is between $50,000 and $100,000 in capital deployed up front. That capital could have been invested in a diversified index fund portfolio, generating an average annual return of 8%. At 8% annual return, $75,000, the midpoint of that deposit range, grows to approximately $162,000 over 10 years. The opportunity cost of the deposit alone is substantial before you have considered a single other cost of ownership. Then come the transaction costs. Stamp duty or property transfer taxes in most countries range from 2 to 5% of the purchase price. On a $500,000 home, that is $10,000 to $25,000 paid to the government simply for the privilege of the transaction. Legal fees, conveyancing costs, inspection fees, and mortgage arrangement fees add several thousand more. The total transaction cost of buying a $500,000 home typically runs between $15,000 and $40,000. Money that is simply gone the moment the transaction completes. A renter pays no transaction costs to move in. They typically pay a security deposit that is refundable. The entry cost of renting is a fraction of the entry cost of buying. Then comes the mortgage itself. A $500,000 home with a 20% deposit requires a $400,000 mortgage at an interest rate of 6.5%, which reflects the current environment in many markets. The monthly mortgage payment on a 25-year term is approximately $2,700. Of that $2,700 in the early years of the mortgage, the majority is interest rather than principal repayment. In the first year of a 25-year mortgage at 6.5% on a $400,000 loan, approximately $26,000 of the $3,400 annual payment goes to interest. Money paid to the bank that builds no equity whatsoever. Only approximately $6,400 goes to principal reduction in the first year. The homeowner paying a $2,700 monthly mortgage is not building $2,700 of equity per month. They are building approximately $533 of equity per month in year one while paying $2,167 in interest, money as genuinely spent as any rent payment, plus taxes, insurance, and maintenance on top. Before we get started, take a second to like or subscribe. It's a simple action from you, but it helps us tremendously and helps this video reach other money-minded people like you. Then come the ongoing ownership costs that the rent versus buy comparison almost always omits. Property taxes in most countries run between 0.5 and 2% of the property's assessed value annually. On a $500,000 home, that is $2,500 to $10,000 per year, $208 to $833 per month, in a cost that does not build equity and does not exist for renters. Buildings insurance is required by every mortgage lender and costs several hundred to over $1,000 annually, depending on the property and location. Maintenance and repairs are the cost of ownership that most prospective buyers most consistently underestimate. The widely cited financial planning guideline suggests budgeting 1 to 2% of the property's value annually for maintenance. On a $500,000 home, that is $5,000 to $10,000 per year, or $417 to $833 per month, for the boiler that eventually fails, the roof that eventually needs replacing, the bathroom that eventually needs renovating, the structural issues that emerge over time. A renter calls their landlord when something breaks. The cost and the responsibility belong to someone else. This is not a trivial financial benefit. Add all of these costs together: mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and the total monthly cost of owning a $500,000 home significantly exceeds the mortgage payment alone. When the full cost of ownership is calculated honestly and compared against renting a comparable property in the same area, the financial advantage of buying is far smaller than the conventional wisdom suggests. And in many markets, in 2026, renting is simply cheaper on a monthly cash flow basis, even before the opportunity cost of the deposit is considered. The second major argument in favor of renting comes from what financial academics call the price-to-rent ratio, a metric that compares the cost of buying a property to the cost of renting the same or similar property. When the price-to-rent ratio is low, buying makes financial sense. You can own the property for roughly the same cost as renting it, and you benefit from equity accumulation and potential appreciation. When the price-to-rent ratio is high, renting makes financial sense. The cost of buying is so much greater than the cost of renting that the financial case for buying weakens substantially. In most major global cities in 2026, price-to-rent ratios are at or near historic highs. In London, the average price-to-rent ratio currently sits above 30, meaning the purchase price of a typical property is more than 30 times its annual rent. In Sydney, Toronto, Amsterdam, Singapore, and most other major urban centers, the ratios tell a similar story. These ratios reflect a market in which property prices have risen far faster than rents, and where the financial mathematics of buying versus renting have shifted meaningfully toward renting. The third argument is about flexibility and its underappreciated financial value. We live in a world where careers are less linear, less geographically fixed, and less predictable than they were for the generation that built the buy always advice. The average person changes jobs significantly more frequently than they did a generation ago. Remote work has expanded the geographic range of career opportunity while simultaneously making physical proximity to a specific city less necessary. The industries that generate the highest incomes are increasingly concentrated in certain markets, and the ability to move to where the best opportunity is has genuine financial value that homeownership constrains. Homeownership creates friction that is often underestimated. Selling a home costs money. Agent commissions typically range from 1.5 to 3% of the sale price. Combined with purchase transaction costs, the round-trip cost of buying a home and selling it within 5 years often eliminates any price appreciation that occurred during the holding period. Research consistently shows that homeowners need to hold a property for a minimum of 5 to 7 years to recover the transaction costs of purchase and sale, and that is before factoring in the opportunity cost of the deposit capital. For someone whose career is in a growth phase, where mobility creates the most financial upside, the flexibility of renting has a real and meaningful financial value that is almost never included in the buy versus rent calculation. The fourth argument concerns the current interest rate environment and what it has done to affordability. A decade ago, in an environment of historically low interest rates, a $400,000 mortgage might have carried a monthly payment of approximately $1,800. The same $400,000 mortgage at today's rates carries a monthly payment of approximately $2,700. The monthly cost of financing a home has increased by approximately 50% without any corresponding increase in the underlying value of the shelter the mortgage buys. First-time buyers in 2026 are financing the same houses their parents bought for dramatically more per month. And in many markets, wages have not risen proportionally to compensate for the increase in financing costs. In this environment, renting a property for $2,000 per month, that would cost $2,700 per month to finance before taxes, insurance, and maintenance, is simply the more financially rational choice for the monthly cash flow. The fifth argument is about the opportunity cost of equity. This is the argument that most homeowners never seriously consider, because the assumption that property always appreciates is so deeply embedded in conventional financial thinking that the alternatives are rarely examined. The deposit and the equity that builds over time in a property is capital, real productive capital that could be deployed elsewhere. A person who rents rather than buys, and who invests the equivalent of their deposit and their monthly ownership cost premium into a diversified global equity portfolio, is participating in the growth of thousands of businesses around the world rather than concentrating their wealth in a single illiquid asset in a single geographic location. Over long historical periods, global equity markets have produced returns that are at least comparable to residential property, and in many periods significantly better, with the additional advantages of liquidity, diversification, and the absence of maintenance obligations. None of this means that buying a home is always wrong. There are circumstances where buying makes clear financial and personal sense. If you have found a place where you intend to stay for 10 years or more, the long-term appreciation of property and the forced savings mechanism of mortgage repayment are genuinely valuable. If you are in a market where the price-to-rent ratio is reasonable, where buying costs roughly the same as renting on a full cost basis, the equity accumulation and security of ownership have real merit. If owning a home provides psychological security, community roots, and the freedom to modify your living space in ways that matter to you, these are actually genuine quality of life values that have worth beyond the financial calculation. If buying a house was just about matching up 2 columns in a spreadsheet, nobody would ever do it. The math rarely paints a simple picture, but anyone treating this like a pure accounting problem is completely missing the point. A home isn't just an asset class on a balance sheet. It's the place where you don't have to ask a landlord for permission to paint a wall, raise a dog, or put down roots. You're trading a massive amount of financial liquidity for something a spreadsheet can't calculate: control over your own life. The honest conversation that most financial and cultural discourse around home ownership avoids is this: buying a home is not always the financially superior choice. It is not always the wealth-building decision it is presented as. In a specific set of current market conditions, high price-to-rent ratios, elevated interest rates, uncertain economic environments, and highly mobile labor markets, renting is a completely rational financial strategy that preserves capital, maintains flexibility, and allows for investment in diversified assets that may ultimately produce superior financial outcomes. The most dangerous version of the conventional wisdom is not the advice itself, but the moral weight attached to it. The idea that renting is failure, that a renter is someone who has not yet made it, who is somehow less financially serious than a buyer, causes enormous harm. It pressures people into home purchases they cannot genuinely afford, because the psychological cost of being seen as a renter feels worse than the financial cost of being overextended as a buyer. It causes people to buy at the wrong time in the wrong market, because waiting feels like giving up rather than strategy. And it causes people to ignore the genuine financial merit of renting as a deliberate choice rather than a default outcome of being unable to afford ownership. The person who rents a modest apartment invests their deposit in a diversified portfolio invests the monthly cost premium between renting and owning, and does this consistently for a decade, may find themselves with a larger investment portfolio than the person who bought the same property at the same time, particularly in a market where price appreciation is modest and the full cost of ownership is high. This is not a guaranteed outcome. Property can appreciate significantly. Markets can surprise in either direction. But the certainty with which the conventional wisdom declares buying superior to renting is not supported by the evidence in all markets at all times. And in 2026, in most major global cities, the honest financial analysis suggests that the rental case deserves far more serious consideration than it typically receives. Renting is not throwing money away. It is paying for housing. The same thing a mortgage interest payment, a property tax bill, an insurance premium, and a maintenance invoice all do, while preserving the financial flexibility that a mortgage and a single illiquid asset cannot provide. It is a strategy. In the right conditions, it is the smarter strategy. And the most financially intelligent thing you can do is make the decision based on the actual numbers in your actual market rather than on advice inherited from a generation that bought property in a completely different economic environment. Click here to watch our video on how much money you need to never work again, because understanding the relationship between assets, returns, and financial independence changes how you think about every major financial decision, including this one.